This is Alan Karpik with two of my favorite people in the world. Cathy always gets tired of me saying that because I always say that about her. But Cathy Wright-Eger and Rosevelt Colvin, who have been fortunate enough to know over the years, and a difficult time and day to be talking about the passing of Morgan Burke. We will reflect on that, but also what he's meant to the two of you and some of the things you learned from him. And Rosie, I'm going to start with you and just. When you first heard the news, what went through your mind in terms of Morgan's passing, and what was your response?
It was definitely a shock, just because you know it was an alert that came across my phone from ESPN.
Yeah.
I immediately sent one of my best friends, Ed Watson, former Purdue player, a message. Say, hey man, did you see this tweet? This alert that Morgan Burke had passed away. He said no, and so I went and searched and looked for an article on ESPN, and they had it there and the reasoning behind it. And it was just sad, just because of the connection, obviously being a Purdue athlete, what he meant to the university, what he has done for the university, what, his sort of legacy, started, a couple years after I had arrived, or, as a couple years before I had arrived. We also had a personal connection because his wife is a Broad Ripple grad, and
yeah, that's right.
I would see them. We would always sing the Broad Ripple fight song, and there was a different connection to me. Obviously, I think just because of that situation, and so definitely sad. And I think, as I had mentioned to you, I think they were in a private situation because no one knew. I didn't know, and I'm assuming maybe some people that were a little bit closer may have known the dynamics of it, but I would have loved to have been able to continue to pray for him through that. And unfortunately now we can't, but we'll pray for his, his wife and the family and the kids. But it's just a same type of feeling I got when I heard Coach Tiller pass.
Yeah.
I'm a homer, and people that have influenced me, that have given me the platform, that have given me, the criteria to build who Rosevelt Colvin is to this day. Morgan Burke is definitely one of those individuals that has poured into me, and I'm very appreciative of him and his family.
Well said. Cathy, where were you when you heard? And I was aware that he was sick. I didn't know. We never know exactly where we were, but obviously you're still in the department and maybe a little closer to the situation. But how did it impact you when you first heard?
Well, I did know that he was sick, but he had recently, Alan, just hired me to do the disc on the deans of Purdue Global.
Yeah.
So I'm so glad he did.
Yeah. You froze up. Are you still there, Cathy? Hello, hello. Rosie, I'm seeing you. I'm not seeing Cathy.
Because that was like my last time I got to there.
Cathy, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead and restate what you said, because I lost you on when you said that you were so glad that he did hire you.
Yes, I was so glad that he did hire me for that. It was like the last job I did for Morgan, and you know what, Alan, after that time that I worked with him, I was like, he's going to beat this cancer. I mean, he was so Morgan-like. He was texting me, calling me, bugging me. That's Morgan. That type A, let's get this right. Let's go do this. Let's nail it. Yes, Morgan, I'm ready. I mean, but I was like, he is good. He's good. And then, I like Rosie, I just heard on Twitter.
Yeah.
And I picked up my phone in between a Zoom meeting and read it, and I just could not believe it.
Yeah.
I just could not believe it. I was devastated, and just really I canceled the rest of my meetings and just really reflected on everything that he has done for so many people. My favorite thing, and actually Kate texted me at 1 a.m. and said she just had been sitting there reading all of those things on all the comments from the student athletes like Rosie that met so much. I mean, they loved him. They loved him, and they loved that he knew all about him. Like, he finds that connection with all the student athletes, and that's what made him so special. They just adored him, and they all wrote, and they were calling and commenting, and they were just so upset. And she said that really gave her a lot of solace, thinking that he really did touch so many people. And that's just our hearts. That's not like the facilities and what he did for Purdue athletics and Purdue University. Got us back. Got us back on the map. Got us respect. And yeah, I think he definitely left a legacy.
Yeah.
And he was true to himself. I mean, he was a feisty go-getter, in your face, let's go, you can do better, you can do more, you know. But he got a lot out of everyone that he touched. Yeah. He really did.
Yeah, Rosie, when you and well said, Cathy, the whole notion that we laughed offline about him, no uncontested layups with Morgan. Obviously, you were a player or played a student athlete in his early part of his career, but you've also had a relationship with Kate and the family over the years. But and you're a businessman now and a former high-level NFL athlete. But what's he taught you from that standpoint? And what kind of relationship have you had with him over the years?
You know, there are a few people that, you know, you can look back and say, you know, they influenced you. And I think a lot of those people, you remember their demeanor, you remember how they went about life. And I think what she just said, basically, it was typical, you know, Morgan Burke. And I distinctly remember coming back to a game a couple years ago. I can't remember who was coaching. I don't think Coach Brown was coaching. I think it was still Hazel, but it was up in the suite. Morgan, he was sitting on the stairs and literally was cheering like he was a 13-year-old kid. Now, again, he was the athletic director, so there was a lot on the line, win or lose. But the passion and desire that he had for the program, that reflects me. You know, my parents, they have a lot of passion and desire for certain things. So when I look at them, I look at people like, you know, my high school guidance counselor, my first coaches, Morgan, you know, Coach Tiller, you know, people that have a joy for life, but people that have a joy for helping, assisting, and moving certain situations to better places. Those are things that, you know, that I try to represent. And I just look at everything that, you know, he's done, as mentioned, that it's just been tremendous, man. So Raven, obviously you mentioned her before the call about her coming to Purdue as a volleyball athlete. And she said, "Daddy, who's that man that passed away?" And I said, that guy meant a lot to a lot of people. So, and I'm getting emotional because he means a lot more than just, you know, somebody's name, Morgan Burke. And for my daughter, you know, to get the opportunity to recognize that was is big. And I'm hoping that his legacy continues to grow and continues to evolve as people see what he meant to the university.
You know, I think there's almost no way it can't, Rosie. I mean, in terms of, because he did develop those connections. I mean, the fact that he knew not only the all Big Ten defensive end or rush end like you were, to the second team doubles player in men's or women's tennis. I mean, he knew about those folks. That's what made him so unique. And Cathy, you obviously saw him as a coach, and then obviously had the opportunity to go into the leadership role. Not always an easy guy to work for, though. And you talked about the need to better understand one another, and that may have helped you grow over the years as well.
It really did. He used to always say, "You're way too emotional. You're way too emotional. You know, this is the business."
That's the pot calling the kettle black. Yeah, right.
Yeah. And I was like, "But I'm a teacher, and how can you not be emotionally, you know, invested in the kids?" And he goes, "Oh, you can be, but you just, you know," he was so competitive. But I really think, honestly, if I had to pinpoint the turning point for me to understand him and him to understand me, is we did the DISC assessment, which is a behavior assessment. And he and I were like polar opposites, you know. He liked results. He was very result oriented, and I'm very people oriented. And all of a sudden he started seeing it in a, just like he saw it through my lens and I saw it through his lens, and we both took 2 steps in and talked about it.
Yeah.
And it really made a huge difference. And, you know, he told me not to be so emotional, and I told him to be a little bit more emotional. And, you know, he listened to me. And I also said, you know, just sometimes your coaches would like to be treated like you treat the athletes. You love them. You're really, yeah, go. But the coaches, you're like, get over there and do better. Do this and do that. I said, just sometimes say thank you. And I'll be darned. It was like a week later, he comes into my office and says, thank you for everything you do. And then he was doing it to other people. So, and that said a lot about him to me, because it's like he was teaching me stuff, but he was also still having that growth mindset to keep growing himself. But I got a couple stories. One of them was we were hosting Big Tens, and this is the pool that he dreamed of and he built. And we were hosting Big Tens, and it was coming down to the last relay, and we had to get a certain place in that relay in order to do better than we've done in a long time. So, you know, he literally ran over on the deck, and he had all the scores calculated, and he was telling my relay, you know, what they needed to do in order to get this place. And my fellow coaches were like, I'd give anything if my AD was down in the huddle, you know, before the last play of the game like that. Like, he is so into it. And my swimmers will never forget that he was just as excited. And this wasn't to win the Big Tens. This was like to get 4th. Yeah. But that was, you know, that was really good. And we were trying to make, you know, that movement and move up. And I love stories like that. Those are the things that when he really got into people's hearts when he cared that much. And it was genuine.
Rosie, you know, as your playing days at Purdue, obviously a couple of very emotional ends to seasons. I can remember your last game, one of the craziest games in the history of Purdue football, and against Kansas State, and you and Chike were having your way with Bishop back there, but that still was a wild end. Do you remember more anything specific about Morgan coming into the locker room, or any roles, like even the Michigan State game your junior year as well? Tell me any stories with respect to that.
You know, I hate that my memory is as bad as it is at my young age, but you know, that Alamo Bowl, I don't remember a whole lot just because I had a major injury, so I was ushered to doctors and doing some other things. The Michigan State situation was a fiasco just because everybody rushed the field. So I don't even know, Morgan, you probably never even came down. I think, you know, for me as an athlete, and it's fitting, the thing that I would always remember is he's the person that called me to tell me I was being inducted into the Hall of Fame. I don't know if I'll get the call for the NFL Hall of Fame. I very seriously doubt it, but I'll take it if they call me. But so I was inducted into the IPS Hall of Fame, the Indianapolis Public School Hall of Fame, and I never really even, I don't think I even knew that Purdue had an athletics Hall of Fame. And I'll never forget the day. I was with, you know, Tiff and the kids. We were eating at a burger place in Fishers, and my phone rings, and I'm like, why would Morgan be calling me today, of all times and places? So I let it go to voicemail. He left a voicemail and said, hey, you know, typical Morgan voice, hey, it's Morgan. Give me a call back when you get a chance. Got some important news for you. So I told you, I said, hey, let me step away and give him a call. So I called him, and he said, man, I want to be the first person to congratulate you on being inducted. I still have that voicemail to this day. And I have it not because it was Morgan, because obviously selfish reasons, you know, I was being inducted, but it is being that he is now no longer with us. I have an opportunity to listen to that man's voice one more time, to listen to who he is or will be to a lot of different people. the joy that he had in giving me a call, the twang of his voice, and how he pronounced his names and his, it just, for me, it's a special moment that I'll never forget. And obviously now being with that connection, I will cherish that. Don't know if I'll delete it anytime soon. But that's one of the unique situations that I will, forever be, tied to with him outside of the connection with Kate and being a Broad Ripple alum. I'm a huge Morgan Burke fan.
Yeah. Leadership is everything to both of you guys, and you both have had that gene, I think, in terms of how to do that. And I'll start with you, Cathy. And obviously, you're spearheaded the Wooden Leadership program in athletics. Tell me about Morgan's role with that. That may have taken some convincing, or at least fine tuning to make this the way you want. But it's a legacy that you, not only are you going to leave, but it's also certainly Morgan's legacy too. That was a big part of what went on with that.
Absolutely, because he was a risk taker to go for that idea. Because we were really out in front with that. I'll never forget that. I had stepped down from coaching, and he came over to the pool and came to my office when I was cleaning it out. And he goes, "What are you going to do?" And I go, "I'm not sure. I don't know yet. I'll figure it out." And he goes, "I just finished up the last performance evaluation, and every single one of my coaches said the same thing, that there's something missing with this leadership. I mean, it's like our upperclassmen don't want to be the leaders." And so he said, "I got a little proposition for you I want you to think about." And he said, "Study this for a year and help me figure it out." Because I had been saying that to him for like 2 years before that. And that's when he'd say, "Oh, you're too emotional. You're too," I was like, "Oh, this is real. This is real." And then when honestly, and I get that, when one person says it, you're like, "Oh, what?" But if every one of your head coaches is saying it, something's going on. So he said, "That's definitely a trend. Let's figure it." And he let me just study all year. And he let me go to Quantico and go to clinics and just bring back all this information. He formed a committee for me, and we all just worked. And then at the end of the year, we put a proposal into him and to Ed Howitt and said, "Hey, we want to start a leadership institute." And he was like, "Okay, explain it to me." And we did. And I was like, "I want it all be optional." And he goes, "Oh, I don't think anyone will come if it's optional." And I said, "Well, people keep coming into my office, all the athletes, all day long. I think they'll actually come to some of this." And so he said, "Okay, let's try it for a year." And then Alan, you helped us get John Wooden's endorsement. That kind of gave it some instant credibility. But Morgan after the first year, he goes, "Let's go. Let's keep this going." He was actually seeing that it was helping the coaches, seeing that it was helping the athletes. It was empowering them. And he was, honestly, we were one of the front runners on that. And that's his vision. He let it fly. And also, there's one other thing about that, and this is not really about the Leadership Institute, but it's something I'll never forget. He called me into his office several times, but this one time, he said, "I've got a job for you to do." He said, "We're flying to Louisville on the Purdue jet this weekend, and I want you to go, and I want you to ride around in a golf cart with Bob Holloway, and I want you to ask him for $1 million. And I was like, "I'm the swim coach. I'm not in John Purdue. I'm not Nancy Cross. I mean, I don't know how to ask for that." And he goes, "Yes, you do. It's just like recruiting. It's exactly like recruiting. You sell Purdue. You tell them that we need the money. We need a new pool. We need to be competitive. I mean, your love for Purdue, just sell it. Just sell it. Just talk to him like you talk to anybody else." And that was a cool day, because we came home and we got in the plane and we got the $1 million. And I would have never in a million years had enough guts, had enough courage to ask for that. But that's the kind of stuff he does. He tells you, "You're better than you think you are. Let's go." And he means it. And so I think that really did. That was one of those days that I thought, wow, I can do some of these things that I didn't know that I could do. And he does push, and he brings out the best in people. And anyone that has just been around him is better off now.
Rosie, and well said, too, on the whole Indianapolis front. Obviously, Indianapolis is a big focus for Purdue. You're an Indianapolis institution, certainly by your background and living there. But tell me, we touched a little bit on his leadership style, but what do you see from what, it's those relationships, sure, but what other things did you take from that standpoint and your experience even from your playing days to now in that relationship with Morgan?
Well, I think, as she mentioned, is his passion and desire for making those around him better. It wasn't just about him or a specific sport. Obviously, I was a football player, and we just didn't understand why they were pouring all this money into an aquatic center. Even as a former player, and now as I look back on the time that we have, that what was going on at the time. We jumped on a wave with Coach Tiller that I think we kind of mishandled a little bit. And even in that, once that wave kind of died off, and we were in the love Coach Hope, but in the Danny Hope days and in the Coach Hazel days, still the passion and desire that he had to push for changes to the football facility to see where it is right now, which is completely amazing.
Mm-hmm.
To additionally add in updates and additions to other sports, and like for soccer, softball, baseball, to the aquatic center, everything that has sort of encompassed what his work has done, to even golf and everything around Purdue athletics, stemming down the Highway 65 to Indianapolis, to, as she mentioned, he's pushing individuals to love as he has loved the university. He's reminding everyone why the saying is ever grateful, ever true. And to be in a relationship with a man that felt as passionate for the university, that has done so much for me and others as well, it just goes to show why we're on this call right now. I didn't know he was the longest tenured AD. I didn't know that was for that situation to be what it is, you hope and pray nobody ever does anything greater than that, because of what this man has accomplished at the university. And I just think that there are going to be so many more people that are affected in a positive manner just of the sacrifices that he's done, the groundwork that he's laid. And you can step back from saying the financial portions or the buildings. It is the example that he provided every day for not just himself and his family, but the staff members there in the department, the coaches, as he pushed them to be better, as she mentioned, and then us ultimately as student athletes, as we grow and leave the university and become spokesmen and spokeswomen for a place that we feel so strongly about. What Morgan did and will do in the future is, I don't think that we'll ever be able to put a number on it.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks so much for your time. I'm not parting shot, but last word, Cathy. What if you were going to say? It's hard to do for a man like Morgan Burke, but any final comments that you want to share with us?
I just honestly, I said this, I sure hope that there's a pool in heaven.
Yeah.
I mean, he was complaining that he couldn't swim during the pandemic. Yeah. And Kate got him a Peloton. He goes, "Oh, bikes suck. I need a pool." And I hope my good friend has a pool in heaven.
Yeah. Well said. Rosie?
Yeah, I don't know if I could talk longer or long enough without becoming overly emotional, just because it is a very sad situation for someone that meant so much to a lot of people. Before the call, I talked to Ed Watson, as one of my better friends, and he said the same thing I said. Man, this hurts. Reading the posts of all the individuals that I played with, connected with, and they're sad, and that is to me is something I want to try to live up to leave a legacy that if I'm no longer, that it is a void that is going to be really, really hard to fill. And I think he did his best over his lifetime, and specifically at Purdue, to make a change in what the life of a Purdue student athlete looked like, and what the university from an athletic department standpoint, the model, the standard, and what we are today and what we stand on.
Well, thank you guys so much for sharing. I know this wasn't the easiest conversation you'll ever have. I will say this, both of you, your place is quite safe because of how you're living, some of the ideals that Morgan Burke has brought to the table. It's very clear to me, at least from where I sit, and I know that he's very, very proud of that. So guys, thanks so much for your time. We'll talk again in happier times, but these are also important things to be said. And again, thanks so much for your time.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
Hey guys, just want to say thank you. I know that wasn't easy, and I appreciate it very much. Both very well articulated, and we can go either have a good beer or a good cry, well, one of the two. But guys, thanks again, and I'm talking to David tomorrow, and we'll post both stories, both videos. I'll do a story, and I'll send you links as well. So
Okay.
Thanks again. Be well and safe through all this, from your loss, I respect that very much. I think that our thoughts are with you as well, because as survivors, it's a hard thing too. So have a great rest of the evening, guys. Thanks so much.
Thank you. All right, Cathy.